Thailand is starving, the crops are gone, the oceans are poisoned, and people are fighting in the streets over food. Then a powerful businessman announces that he's found the solution: safe fish. People believe him, and that's how the outbreak begins. But this apocalypse is far worse than it looks, because once the infected start spreading, almost everything you would normally trust to survive starts working against you. The hospital becomes a death trap. The sprinklers make the infected even worse. The rescue helicopter isn't coming for you. And when the government finally arrives, their solution is to blow the entire building up. Meanwhile, one Muay Thai fighter is climbing through that nightmare with a child, trying to reach the woman he loves before the whole place comes down. And that's only the beginning. Because in Ziam, surviving the infected might actually be the easy part. Let's get into it. Before a single dead body stands back up, this world is already stacked against you. And that part matters because it's what makes the trap work. The climate crisis wrecked the food supply. Crops failed, the oceans became polluted, and the country slid into a real emergency. Now, Thailand held on to more than most, mostly by shutting itself off from the outside. But holding on to resources isn't the same as sharing them. There's plenty at the top and next to nothing at the bottom. People who lost their jobs turned to scavenging or to robbing food shipments just to eat. That's the world. That's a normal day. Here's the detail almost nobody clocks, and it's the one that makes the whole movie land harder once you catch it. Singh, our guy, the Muay Thai fighter, his job at the start isn't fighting in a ring. He's working as a driver for a big food company, hauling its shipments into Bangkok. And on his very last run, before he plans to walk away and start a quiet life, he's carrying a load of fish. That fish is contaminated. He doesn't know it. Nobody does. But the man spends the whole rest of the movie fighting to save the woman he loves from a plague he carried in with his own two hands. Sit with that for a second, because it's the quiet gut punch under everything. In this world, the job that keeps you alive is the same job that gets everybody killed. So when a guy on TV says he's got a way to feed the country, nobody fact checks him. They're too hungry to fact check him. That's the trap. And it's the most realistic thing in the whole movie. Desperate people don't ask, is this tested? They ask, when do we eat? Hunger quietly shuts off the exact part of your brain that's supposed to keep you alive. And this is where preparation stops being enough. You can stock food, you can carry a weapon, you can have a plan. None of that helps if the thing you trust to keep you alive is exactly what brings the infection to your door. So the real question was never, how do you survive the zombies? Like, the real question is, when the man with the food swears it's safe, do you eat it? Because the food that was supposed to save everybody is exactly what starts killing them. And that's where the whole thing comes apart. Meet Mr. Vasu. He runs VS Corporation, and he spent a lot of effort making himself the man who's gonna save the country. His face is on posters everywhere. He's got the whole savior act down. Trust me, I've got the answer. I'm gonna feed you all. And his answer is fish. His company says they've cracked it, made fish safe to eat again. Big announcement, room full of important people, all that we solved hunger energy. Well, there's just one problem. The fish is poison. And here's the part the movie is smart about. The part that grounds the whole thing. This isn't some mystery bug from nowhere. The opening tells you straight up. The same climate crisis that wrecked the food supply also released an ancient bacteria from the melting ice. And somehow that contamination ended up in the fish Vasu was betting his entire food program on. It doesn't just make you sick, it kills you, and then it brings you back wrong. Watch how it actually starts, because it's easy to blow past. The first infected person we see isn't a random nobody in an alley. It's a senior guy from Vasu's own company, an insider, someone near the top who eats first and eats best. He gets sick, he's rushed to the hospital, and he dies on the table, throwing up blood in a way that's genuinely rough to sit through. And then he gets up. There's a nasty little irony in who goes first. Normally being close to the top keeps you safe. You eat before everybody else, you're insulated from the shortage. Here it's flipped. The guy with the access, the one who got access to the fish before the public ever saw it, is the guy who gets exposed first and lights the fuse. Now here's the part that seals your fate. Where does patient zero turn? In a hospital. A hospital might be the worst possible place for an outbreak to start. You've got sick people who can't run, doctors who won't leave them, and people packed into the same building, every hallway full, every floor occupied. Everybody who's already weak is inside. Everybody whose whole instinct is to help is inside. And the second it starts, all that helping turns straight into a body count. Here's what should get under your skin though. Vasu isn't a cackling supervillain. That'd almost be a comfort. He's just a man who believed his own hype. He wanted to save people. He wanted to save his wife. He handed out poison because he was dead sure it was a miracle. Good intentions built this whole nightmare. So the infection's loose. It started inside a packed high-rise, and the one person Singh loves is somewhere upstairs in it, which brings us to the building, because the hospital isn't just the setting here. The hospital is the thing that kills you. Throw out everything zombie movies taught you about running, because almost all of it assumes flat ground with somewhere to go. In a hospital high-rise, you've got neither. Rin, Singh's girlfriend, a doctor, is trapped inside when it breaks out, and the whole place goes into lockdown. And Singh does the thing that tells you everything about him. He hears the announcement, and while everyone sane is clawing to get out, he sneaks in. Now think about what going in means here. The infected are between him and Rin, and she's hiding somewhere, upstairs. Every stairwell is a funnel. Every hallway is a straight shot with no cover. The elevators aren't an option either, because the power is shut off at night, and once it's dark, you're left taking the stairs, which means walking straight into the vertical choke point where the infected have every advantage. They come down, you go up, and there's nowhere to peel off. Here's the math nobody says out loud. In an open city, an outbreak spreads out and thins. There's always another street. In a tower, it stacks, it concentrates. Every floor you clear just means more of them waiting on the next landing. And behind you, some of the ones you already passed can get back up. You don't get to thin the herd. The building does the herd's work for it. And the worst part is the exact thing that makes a hospital a hospital. It's built to hold people who can't leave. The movie makes that brutally literal in the maternity ward, packed with people who can't run at all. The building's whole reason for existing becomes the weapon. So Rin's up there, Singh's climbing, and the geography means every step forward makes his odds worse, not better. Which raises the obvious question. If the whole place is stacked against you and the horde owns the high ground, what are you supposed to fight your way up with? Because Singh's answer is completely out of his mind. Here's where Ziam gets completely wild. Our hero fights the zombies with his bare hands. No shotgun, no machete, no fire axe off the wall. The man's a Muay Thai fighter, so the whole plan is elbows, knees, and shins. He kicks them down stairwells and caves their heads in, and watching it, it's awesome. It's the whole reason this movie exists, but actually think about what that means as a survival plan, because it's terrifying. Every time you punch a zombie, your hand is an inch from its mouth. That's it. That's the whole horror of going hand to hand with something that only needs to bite you once. A weapon with reach keeps the thing that kills you at arm's length. Fists keep it at 0. You're shoving the most biteable parts of your body, your hands, your forearms, straight into the strike zone again and again in every fight. A great fighter wins 999 of those exchanges. He only has to lose one. And this is where even Singh's biggest advantage turns into a liability. He's maybe the most physically capable person in the building, and he's still one bad angle away from getting bitten. If the toughest guy in there is that fragile, what do you figure your odds are? There's another factor the movie shows you without ever spelling it out. Fighting like this burns you down fast. Every zombie Singh drops costs him real energy, and he never gets to stop and refuel. Throw 100 full power kicks and your arms turn to noodles, your lungs are on fire, and the horde does not care that you're tired. They don't sleep, they don't slow down. So even if you win every fight, you're losing a war of attrition to something that literally can't get tired. The longer he survives, the weaker he gets, and the better their odds get. Now add the thing that makes it so much worse. He's not alone. Somewhere in the chaos, he picks up a kid, Buddy, little boy, scared out of his mind, and he's got his own agenda. He's trying to get back to his mom, who also works at the hospital. So now Singh's fighting his way up a tower full of the dead with a child hanging off him who can't fight and can't keep pace. But here's the twist on that, and it's a nice one. The kid isn't just dead weight. In the middle of a fight, it's Buddy who tells Singh the one thing that actually matters: go for the head, because the brain runs everything. The smallest, most vulnerable person in the building is the one who cracks the code on how to kill these things. That's a great little beat because it flips your expectations. The liability turns out to be the reason they survive as long as they do. Still, protecting a kid changes everything about your odds. Every choice becomes a compromise. You can't take the fast, risky route. You can't leave anybody one hand fighting, one hand holding. That's just what it costs to care about somebody when the whole world's trying to eat you. So Sing's climbing a kill box, barehanded, dragging a child toward a woman who might already be gone. And right about the time he figures these things out, how they move, how to hurt them, the rules change on him. This is the moment the movie earns its stripes for me, because it pulls off the one thing a great Outbreak story is supposed to. It takes the monster you finally understand and makes it worse right in front of you. And the way it does it is the best idea in the whole film. Late in the fight, one of the infected soldiers comes back and Sing throws a Molotov at him. Fire is one of the few things that actually stops these things, so it makes sense. Except the fire trips the hospital's sprinkler system. The ceiling opens up and water pours down over everything, and the water does something to the infected. The ones that had gone still, the bodies you'd have sworn were finally dead, jolt back to life, and the ones that get soaked come back warped, grotesque, swollen, moving different, hitting harder, more creature than person now. Whatever's happening inside them, the water turns them into something else entirely. Now look at what just happened. The hospital's own safety system, the thing built to protect everybody inside, is what creates the deadliest version of the enemy. It's not the weather, it's not some outside force, it's the building itself flipping the rules. The sprinklers are supposed to save lives. Here, they wake the dead up and turn them into something worse, and this is the scariest kind of thing that can happen to you in a situation like this. The most dangerous moment in any survival scenario is the second you decide you've got it figured out. You've watched how these things move. You've learned their timing, their reach. You cleared that floor. Those bodies aren't getting up. You built a rule book in your head and you're betting your life on it. Then the water hits, the infection changes, and everything you learned 5 minutes ago is now the thing that gets you killed. You can fight a man. You can fight a plan, but you can't fight the building turning against you. So now Sing's stuck in a place he can't win, fighting monsters that just got worse, dragging a kid, running out of body. And that's the exact moment the outside world finally shows up to help. Except help is about to mean something very different from what these people are praying for. Let's talk about the cavalry, because every Outbreak movie has that beat where you look up and think, okay, finally help is here. Ziam gives you that beat. Then it shows you what the cavalry is actually for. The military moves in, but not to save the building. They send a small team in for one reason, to extract Mr. Vesu, the man whose miracle fish started all of this, and his wife, Anne. That's the whole mission. There's a chopper waiting on the roof, and it's holding seats for exactly 2 people, and neither of them is you. The man whose company brought the contaminated fish in gets the ride out. Everybody else gets to stay and become part of the problem, and watch how it plays. Sing finally reaches Rin, and for 1 second, it looks like they made it. Then the commandos grab her. When their own medic gets torn apart by the infected, they decide Rin's coming with them whether she wants to or not, and they shoot Sing to keep him back. He goes down. He's not superhuman here. He's a guy who got shot, buying other people a chance. Now here's how the outside world really helps. The plan to stop the outbreak isn't a rescue. It's a demolition. They've wired the entire hospital to blow, the whole building. The plan is to bring it down with everything inside. The dead, the infected, and yeah, the living too. That's what containment looks like. The second the people inside stop being treated as people and start being treated as a threat, the goal changes. Nobody's getting you out anymore. They're sealing you in. So here's the full picture. The man whose company put the contaminated fish into circulation gets the helicopter. The army's fix is a bomb on a timer, and that clock is running while a wounded fighter, a doctor, and a scared kid are still near the top of a building that's about to come down. The only reason Rin and Buddy get out at all comes down to one grim stretch of luck. Anne, Vasu's wife, was bitten. She turns, and Vasu, delirious, refusing to see it, is sure she's finally coming back to him. She isn't. She kills him while he's still convinced she's getting better. The infection takes them both, and just like that, the people who were never supposed to be on that helicopter are the ones who get out. That's the world these people are trying to survive. It starved them, poisoned them, trapped them, turned the thing hunting them into something worse, and then decided the safest option was to destroy the entire building. And Sing still has to get 2 people onto that roof before before the timer hits 0. So this is it. Sing drags himself back up, shot and bleeding, and before the last push, Rin patches him up as best she can. And right there, in the middle of the worst day of his life, he proposes. He gives her the ring and promises they're going back to Changdao, back home to the quiet life they'd been planning before any of this. That promise is the whole reason he took those dangerous jobs in the first place. And the scene tells you exactly what he's about to do before he does it. He gets them to the roof and then he stays. The horde's coming up behind them, and Sing knows somebody has to stay back long enough for Rin and Buddy to get clear. So he plants himself between the dead and the two people he loves and tells them to go. Rin's screaming for the soldiers to wait. They won't. They can't. The explosives are about to go, and a helicopter full of live people beats one that gets vaporized on the pad, so they lift off. And the last thing Rin sees is Sing, alone on a rooftop at sunset, swinging on a mob of monsters as the explosives tear the building apart beneath him. As far as she knows, that's the end of him. He traded himself for their seats, except the movies got one more card. After the smoke clears, we find out Sing isn't dead. When the building came down, he threw himself into one of the water tanks up on the terrace and rode out the blast inside it. And the first thing he does, crawling out of the wreckage, still breathing, is stomp a zombie's skull under his foot and square up for the next one. Of course he does. Then the movie cuts to the thing that actually guts you. Rin and Buddy, sometime later, living out in the countryside. Quiet, safe, green hills, open air, the exact life Sing described wanting. The one he spent the whole movie fighting to get back to. And there, on Rin's finger, is the ring. She's still wearing it. She's still waiting. So sit with where that leaves everybody. The country's still in crisis. The outbreak is still out there, and water can still turn the infected into something worse. Sing survived the outbreak, the tower, the mutated infected, getting shot and left behind, and finally the building coming down on top of him. And his reward is that he's now on foot, alone somewhere out there, with a whole country between him and the only two people he's still alive for. That's the last image this movie leaves you with. Not a hero riding off into the sunset, a man who did everything right, beat impossible odds again and again, and still has the entire apocalypse parked between him and home. And that's why you wouldn't survive Ziam. Not because the infected are fast, though they are. It's because in this world, surviving the monster was never the hard part. The monster was the one honest thing in the whole story. Everything else, the hunger, the miracle that wasn't, the tower, the water, the helicopter, the explosives, all of it was people, and people are the reason the dead were ever standing up in the first place. The infected can end you in seconds. Everything else in that world is doing the exact same thing. It's just taking its time.